Jake Morrison wiped the sweat from his face as he walked up the stairs to his small apartment. It had been another long day at the auto shop. His hands were still dirty with oil and grease. The summer heat made everything worse. The old building had no air conditioning, and his window unit had broken 3 weeks ago. He did not have money to fix it yet. Jake opened his apartment door and felt the hot air hit him like a wall. The small rooms trapped all the heat from the day. He threw his work clothes in the corner and headed straight to the shower. The cold water felt good on his tired body. He stayed under the water longer than usual, trying to cool down. After the shower, Jake looked at his bed. Even his thin sheets seemed too hot. He had been sleeping without clothes for weeks now. It was the only way to stay cool enough to sleep. The neighbors might think it was strange, but Jake lived alone and nobody could see into his room anyway. Jake lay down on his bed and closed his eyes. The room was still too warm, but he was so tired that sleep came quickly. He dreamed of cooler places, maybe by a lake or in the mountains, somewhere with a nice breeze and clean air. When Jake woke up, something was very wrong. The first thing he noticed was that he was cold. Really cold. His skin felt like ice, and he could see his breath in the air. This made no sense. It was summer, and his room had been like an oven when he went to sleep. The second thing he noticed was that he was not in his bed. Jake opened his eyes slowly and saw a ceiling that was not his. It was very high and made of some kind of smooth metal that seemed to glow with a soft blue light. The surface was perfectly clean and had no marks or scratches on it. It looked like no metal he had ever seen before. Jake sat up quickly and looked around. He was lying on a flat surface that felt like metal too, but it was warm under his body. The room around him was huge, much bigger than his entire apartment. The walls curved in strange ways, and they were the same glowing metal as the ceiling. Strange sounds filled the air. They were soft but constant, like the humming of big machines. There were also clicking noises and sounds that reminded Jake of wind chimes, but deeper and more musical. Jake stood up and realized he was still naked. The cold air made him shiver, but he was more worried about where he was than about being cold. He looked for his clothes, but saw nothing that looked familiar. Everything in the room was smooth and curved and made of that strange, glowing metal. As Jake walked around the room, he saw something that made him stop. There were windows, but they were not like any windows he knew. They were perfectly clear, but they seemed to be made of the same material as the walls. Through them, Jake could see space. Real space. With stars and darkness and no Earth anywhere. Jake had seen pictures of space before, but this was different. He could see so many stars that they almost looked like clouds of light. Some were different colors, red and blue and yellow. There was no sun nearby, but somehow the room had light. Jake pressed his face against the window and tried to understand what he was seeing. He was definitely not on Earth anymore. But how was that possible? He had gone to sleep in his bed like always. People did not just wake up in space. While Jake stared out the window, he heard new sounds behind him. These were different from the machine noises. They sounded almost like voices, but not human voices. They were higher and had more musical tones, like the wind chime sounds, but with patterns that seemed like words. Jake turned around and saw something that made his heart beat very fast. There were creatures looking at him. They were tall, much taller than Jake, and they seemed to be made of crystal or glass. Their bodies were clear but had colors moving through them like water with light in it. They had arms, but more than two, and their heads were shaped differently than human heads. They had no hair, and their faces had large areas that might have been eyes, but Jake could not be sure. 3 of these crystal beings stood near what looked like a doorway. They were making those musical sounds to each other, and Jake realized they were talking about him. Jake did the first thing that came to his mind. He waved. The crystal beings stopped making sounds. They seemed surprised. One of them made different noises, and the others responded. Jake got the feeling they had not expected him to be friendly. Jake pointed to himself and said his name slowly and clearly. "Jake. I am Jake." The beings looked at each other and made more musical sounds. One of them came closer to Jake. It was even taller up close, maybe 8 feet tall. The colors moving through its crystal body were beautiful, like watching northern lights. The being made sounds that were clearly meant for Jake. The sounds were different from when it talked to the others. Jake could not understand the words, but the tone seemed curious, maybe even friendly. Jake pointed to the being and made a questioning sound. He was trying to ask what its name was. The being seemed to understand. It made a sound that was like music mixed with the sound of rain on glass. Jake tried to copy the sound but failed completely. The being made what Jake thought might have been laughter. Jake looked around the room again and then back at the crystal beings. He was naked. He was in space, and he was talking to aliens. A few hours ago, his biggest problem had been a broken air conditioner. But Jake was not scared. He was confused and surprised, but not scared. These beings had not hurt him. They seemed curious about him, the same way he was curious about them. Maybe this would not be so bad after all. Jake smiled at the beings and waited to see what would happen next. The crystal being that had come close to Jake made more musical sounds. This time, Jake heard something different. Some of the sounds started to make sense, like his brain was learning to understand them. "You are calm," the being said. The words came out strange, like they were being sung instead of spoken, but Jake could understand them. "Yeah, I guess I am," Jake said. "Are you learning my language?" "We study your kind," the being replied. "You are different. Others fear. You do not fear." Jake looked around the room again. "Well, you haven't hurt me. You seem nice enough. Are you doctors or something?" The crystal being made sounds to the others. They responded with what sounded like surprise. One of them came forward and spoke to Jake. "I am Dr. Veleth," it said. The name sounded like crystal wind chimes. "We are Helix. We study life from many worlds. You are human from Earth." "Nice to meet you, Dr. Veleth," Jake said. "I'm Jake Morrison. I fix cars for a living. So, why am I here?" Dr. Veleth and the other beings made sounds to each other. Jake got the feeling they were confused by his question. "You ask why?" Dr. Veleth said. "Others beg, others cry, others try to escape. You ask why?" Jake shrugged. "Well, yeah. I mean, I'm here now. Might as well find out what's going on. Are you going to hurt me?" "We do not harm," Dr. Veleth said. "We study. We learn about your kind." "Okay, that's good," Jake said. "Can I help? I mean, if you want to learn about humans, I can tell you stuff. But I'm getting pretty cold here." The crystal beings made more sounds to each other. Jake heard what he thought was argument in their musical voices. Finally, Dr. Veleth spoke again. "You offer to help us study you?" "Sure," Jake said. "I've got questions too, like how do you guys build ships that fly through space, and how are you talking to me in English? That's pretty amazing." Dr. Veleth turned to the other beings and made excited sounds. One of the others, who was darker and had red colors moving through its crystal body, came forward. "I am Commander Zenth," it said. Its voice was deeper and less musical than Dr. Veleth's. "You are not afraid of us. Why?" Jake thought about that. "I don't know. You're different, sure. But you're just people, right? People from somewhere else. You talk, you think. You seem to care about not hurting me. Why should I be afraid, Commander?" Zenth made sounds that Jake was starting to recognize as frustration. "We are superior beings. Our technology is beyond your understanding. Your world is primitive compared to ours." "Maybe," Jake said, "but you still put your pants on one leg. At a time, don't you? I mean, if you wear pants." Dr. Veleth made sounds that Jake was sure was laughter. Commander Zenth did not seem amused. "Show him to the study chamber," Commander Zenth said to Dr. Veleth. "Perhaps when he sees our power, he will show proper respect." A wall in the room opened up, and Jake saw it was actually a door. Dr. Veleth gestured for Jake to follow. As they walked, Jake looked at everything around him with interest. "This is really well made," Jake said, running his hand along the smooth wall. "What kind of metal is this? It's warm but not hot, and it glows without any electricity I can see." "It is not metal as you know it," Dr. Veleth said. "It is grown, not built." "Grown, like a plant. Similar. We grow our ships and tools from living crystals that we guide." Jake stopped walking and stared at the wall. "That's incredible. So the whole ship is alive?" "In a way, yes. How do you keep it fed? How does it get energy? How do you tell it what shape to grow into?" Dr. Veleth stopped too. "You are very curious for a primitive being." "Primitive maybe, but curious definitely," Jake said. "I work with machines all day. They all work on the same basic ideas, even if they look different. I bet your living ship works on basic ideas too, just ones I haven't learned yet." They continued walking through corridors that curved in ways that should have been confusing, but somehow Jake could tell where they were going. The ship seemed to guide people naturally. "Smart design," Jake said. "The ship helps people find their way around." "Yes," Dr. Veleth said. "How did you know that?" "The floor is slightly different here," Jake said, pointing down. "And the lights are a little brighter in the direction we're supposed to go. Plus the walls curve to make you want to turn the right way. It's like the ship is gently pushing you where you need to be." Dr. Veleth stopped again and looked at Jake with what might have been surprise. "Our own young ones do not notice these things so quickly." "Maybe they're just used to it," Jake said. "When you grow up with something, you stop seeing how clever it is." They reached another room, this one smaller than the first. It had what looked like chairs, but they were grown from the same crystal material as everything else. Dr. Veleth gestured for Jake to sit. "We will provide covering for your body," Dr. Veleth said. "Then we will begin our studies." A section of wall opened up, and another calyx brought in what looked like a simple robe. It was soft and warm, and it fit Jake perfectly even though no one had measured him. "Thanks," Jake said as he put it on. "This feels good. How did you know my size?" "The ship scanned you when you arrived," Dr. Veleth said. "It knows everything about your physical form." "Everything, huh?" Jake said. "That's pretty thorough. Does it know I have a scar on my knee from when I fell off my bike when I was 8? Veleth made sounds to something Jake couldn't see. After a moment it said, "Yes, left knee. The bone healed slightly crooked." "Yep, that's the one," Jake said. Your scanners are really good. Dr. Veleth seemed pleased. Now, we will begin. We have questions about human behavior, human thinking, human society. Fire away, Jake said. Though I should warn you, I'm just one guy. Humans are all different. What's true for me might not be true for everyone. You understand that your answers represent only yourself? Of course, Jake said. I mean, I can tell you what I think most people would do, but I could be wrong. People are complicated. Dr. Veleth made excited sounds to the other Keelix in the room. Jake was getting better at reading their emotions from the colors that moved through their crystal bodies and the tone of their musical voices. Most subjects we study do not understand this concept, Dr. Veleth said. They believe their answers are true for all of their kind. Well, that would be pretty silly, Jake said. I mean, do all Calix think exactly the same way? Dr. Veleth paused. No, we do not. Then why would all humans think the same way? Jake asked. We're probably more different from each other than you guys are, since we don't have telepathy or shared consciousness or anything like that. How did you know we have shared consciousness? Jake gestured around the room. Lucky guess. You all seem to know what the others are thinking sometimes. And your ship responds to your thoughts, doesn't it? So you must be connected to it mentally somehow. Dr. Veleth was quiet for a long moment. Then it said, You are a very unusual human, Jake Morrison. Maybe, Jake said. Or maybe you just haven't met very many humans. We might all seem unusual to you at first. Perhaps, Dr. Veleth said. Let us begin our questions. The questions went on for hours. Dr. Veleth asked Jake about everything from what humans ate to how they made decisions. Jake answered as honestly as he could, often adding that other humans might think differently. You say humans disagree with each other often, Dr. Veleth said. How do you accomplish anything? We argue until we find something that works well enough, Jake said, or until we get tired of arguing. Sometimes the best ideas come from people fighting about stuff. This seems inefficient. Maybe, Jake said. But it means we try lots of different ways to solve problems. Some of them turn out to be really good ways that nobody thought of before. Dr. Veleth made notes on a device that looked like it was made of liquid light. Tell me about your work. You repair vehicles? Cars, trucks, motorcycles, anything with an engine, Jake said. People bring me their broken machines and I figure out how to fix them. How do you learn to repair machines you have never seen? Before? Jake thought about that. Well, most machines work on the same basic ideas. You've got to move energy from one place to another, or change one kind of motion into another kind. Once you understand what a machine is supposed to do, you can usually figure out what's wrong with it. Even if the machine is very different from others you have worked on? Sure. I mean, the first time I saw a hybrid car, I didn't know anything about electric motors mixed with gas engines, but I knew how both parts were supposed to work separately, so I just had to figure out how they worked together. Dr. Veleth was quiet for a moment. You learn by understanding principles rather than memorizing procedures. I guess, Jake said. I mean, I know the procedures for things I do a lot. But when something new comes along, you've got to think about why things work the way they do. Interesting. Dr. Veleth made more notes. We have a broken device. Our engineers cannot repair it. Would you examine it? Jake was surprised. You want me to look at your technology? I thought you said it was way beyond what humans could understand. It is, but you have said that machines work on basic principles. Perhaps your perspective might be useful. Commander Zenth came into the room just as Dr. Veleth said this. The red colors in its crystal body were moving fast, which Jake had learned meant it was angry. You cannot show him our technology, Commander Zenth said. "He is a primitive being. He will learn nothing useful, and we will reveal our secrets." "What secrets?" Jake asked. "I already told you I don't understand your science. I'm not going to go back to Earth and build crystal spaceships. I wouldn't even know where to start." "Then what value could you possibly provide?" Commander Zenth asked. Jake shrugged. "Maybe none." But Dr. Veleth asked. "So I'm willing to try. What's the worst that could happen? I look at your broken thing, I can't fix it, and you're back where you started." Commander Zenth made frustrated sounds. "And if you damage it further?" "I won't touch anything unless you say it's okay," Jake said. "I'll just look and tell you what I think. You can decide if my ideas are worth trying." Dr. Veleth spoke to Commander Zenth in their musical language. Jake could hear argument in their tones, but eventually Commander Zenth made sounds that seemed like giving up. "Very well," Commander Zenth said to Jake. "But you will touch nothing without permission." "Deal," Jake said. Dr. Veleth led Jake to another room. This one was clearly a workshop. There were tools that looked like they were made of light, and workbenches that seemed to grow from the floor when needed. In the center of the room was a device about the size of a refrigerator. The device was beautiful. It was made of the same crystal material as everything else, but it had intricate patterns inside it that looked like they had been carved by a master artist. Some parts glowed softly, but other parts were dark. "This is a quantum resonance calibrator," Dr. Veleth said. "It is essential for our navigation systems. It has not functioned properly for many cycles." Jake walked around the device slowly, looking at it from all angles. "What's it supposed to do?" "It maintains harmonic balance between our ship's consciousness and the quantum fields of space." "Okay," Jake said. "I don't know what that means exactly, but let me guess. It's supposed to keep your ship connected to something outside the ship, right? Like a radio that has to stay tuned to the right frequency? That is a reasonable analogy. And right now it's not staying tuned properly?" "Correct. The calibration drifts constantly. We must adjust it manually every few hours, or we lose navigation ability." Jake looked more closely at the device. He could see that some of the crystal patterns inside were slightly different colors than others. Some parts that glowed looked dimmer than they probably should be. "Can you show me what it looks like when it's working right?" Jake asked. Dr. Veleth activated the device. The patterns inside began to move and the whole thing hummed with a sound that was almost like music. But Jake could see that the movement wasn't smooth. Some parts moved in jerky steps, and the music had rough spots in it. "See, right there," Jake said, pointing to one section. "That part is struggling. It's trying to move smoothly, but something is making it stick." "Our engineers have examined that section extensively. They find no flaws." "Maybe there aren't any flaws," Jake said. "Maybe that part is just carrying too much load." Dr. Veleth looked confused. Load, weight, stress, work. Jake thought about how to explain it. Like, imagine you have a wheel that's supposed to turn easily. If you hang a heavy weight on one side of the wheel, it still turns, but it's harder to keep it spinning smoothly. The quantum matrix should distribute all forces equally. Should, yeah. But what if something else is pulling on it? Something outside the device? Jake walked around the calibrator again. "What's on the other side of this wall?" Another navigation device. "The gravitic sensor array?" "How close?" Dr. Veleth showed Jake a diagram on its light device. The two machines were very close together. "I bet that's your problem," Jake said. These two machines are interfering with each other. Impossible. They are designed to work in proximity. Designed to, sure, but things change. Maybe one of them is working a little differently than it used to. Maybe something got bumped slightly out of position. Maybe the ship itself changed shape a tiny bit after years of flying through space. Dr. Veleth was quiet for a long moment. You suggest that the problem is not with the calibrator itself, but with its environment. Exactly, Jake said. When I fix cars, sometimes the problem isn't with the part that's acting up. Sometimes it's with something that's putting stress on that part. Our engineers focus on the device itself. They do not consider external influences. Why not? Because the mathematics tell us that such influences should not matter. Jake grinned. Math is great, but machines don't always read the manual. Sometimes you have to ignore what should happen and look at what is happening. Dr. Veleth made excited sounds to several other Keelix who had come into the workshop. They responded with what Jake thought was disbelief. They do not believe your hypothesis could be correct, Dr. Veleth said. That's okay, Jake said. Want to test it? Just move one of the machines a little bit and see what happens. Moving the gravitic array would require significant effort. What about just moving this one a few inches? Jake asked. If I'm right, even a small change in position should make a difference. Dr. Veleth spoke to the other Keelix. There was more argument, but eventually they seemed to agree. We will attempt your suggestion, Dr. Veleth said. But if you are wrong, if I'm wrong, you move it back and you're no worse off than before, Jake said. It took an hour to move the calibrator just 6 inches to the left. When Dr. Veleth activated it again, the difference was obvious immediately. The patterns inside moved smoothly, and the music was clean and steady. The workshop fell silent except for the perfect harmony of the working device. Impossible, one of the Keelix engineers said. Not impossible, Jake said. Just simple. Sometimes. The simple answer is the right answer, Dr. Veleth turned to Jake. You have accomplished in hours what our best engineers could not do in cycles. How? Jake thought about it. I guess I just looked at it differently. You guys know way more about how this stuff works than I do, but maybe knowing too much made it harder to see the simple problem. You are not constrained by our assumptions about how the device should behave. Right, Jake said. I don't know enough to know what's impossible, so I just look at what I can see and try to figure out why it's happening. The Keelix engineers were making excited sounds to each other. Jake could see bright colors moving quickly through their crystal bodies. They are requesting permission to consult with you on other technical problems, Dr. Veleth said. Sure, Jake said. I'm happy to help. This is pretty interesting stuff. Commander Zenth had been watching from the doorway. Now it came forward, and its red colors were moving very fast. This changes things, it said to Dr. Veleth. If a primitive being can solve our engineering problems, what does that say about our superiority? Maybe it says that being different isn't the same as being better or worse, Jake said. Maybe it just means we're different. News of Jake's success spread through the Keelix ship faster than Dr. Veleth had expected. Within hours, engineers from other departments were asking to meet the human who had solved the calibrator problem. Commander Zenth tried to limit access to Jake, but the requests kept coming. This is getting out of hand, Commander Zenth said to Dr. Veleth. The crew is starting to question our technological superiority. Perhaps that is not a bad thing, Dr. Veleth replied. We have been stagnant. For too long, our last major innovation was over 1,000 cycles ago. Commander Zenth's red colors flashed brighter. Are you suggesting that this primitive human is more advanced than we are? I am suggesting that advancement and innovation are not the same thing, Dr. Veleth said. We have perfected our existing technology, but we have stopped creating new solutions. Jake was in the workshop looking at the third device the engineers had brought him. This one was a waste recycling system that had been working slowly for years. The Helix had accepted the inefficiency because their calculations showed it should work perfectly. See, your math is right, Jake told the engineer, whose name sounded like wind through crystals. This system should work perfectly. But look, here. Jake pointed to a section where the crystal channels were slightly darker than the rest. This part is working harder than it should. It's getting tired. Crystal matrices do not get tired, the engineer said. Everything gets tired if you use it long enough, Jake said. Even diamonds can wear out if you scrub them against stuff for years. Your channels here are doing extra work because the flow isn't balanced right. The flow calculations are precise. For a perfect system, yeah. But this system has been running for how long? Approximately 15,000 cycles, Jake whistled. That's a long time. Things change. Maybe some channels got a little wider from all that flowing. Maybe some got a little narrower from deposits building up. Your perfect calculations are based on how things were when you built it, not how they are now. The engineer was quiet for a moment. You suggest that we recalculate based on current conditions, rather than original specifications. Exactly. It's like tuning a guitar. Even if you tune it perfectly, you have to tune it again later because things shift. Within 2 hours, the recycling system was running better than it had in decades. The engineer left with what Jake was learning to recognize as excitement in Keelik's body language. Dr. Veleth found Jake in the workshop later that day. Commander Zenth has contacted the High Command. They are sending an Archon to evaluate the situation. Is that bad? Jake asked. It is significant. Archons only travel when something challenges the fundamental order of our society. And I'm challenging your society by fixing some machines? You are challenging our assumption that technological advancement equals superiority, Dr. Veleth said. For centuries, we have believed that because our technology is more advanced than other species, we are inherently superior beings. Jake sat down on one of the crystal chairs. That's kind of a weird way to think about it. I mean, my car is more advanced than a horse, but that doesn't make me better than the horse. Just different. But your species has not achieved interstellar travel. You do not have living ships or quantum navigation. By our measures, you are primitive. Maybe by your measures, Jake said, but I can fix your stuff, and your engineers couldn't. So maybe your measures aren't the only ones that matter. That is exactly what frightens Commander Zenth and the High Command. Jake thought about that. What frightens them? That I can fix things? Or that their way of thinking might be wrong? Both, Dr. Veleth said. If a primitive being can outperform our engineers, what does that say about our place in the universe? Maybe it says that everyone has something valuable to offer, Jake suggested. Maybe it says that different kinds of thinking are useful for different kinds of problems. You speak of cooperation between species. Why not? I mean, you guys know stuff I'll never understand. But apparently I know stuff you haven't thought of either. We could probably learn a lot from each other. Dr. Veleth's crystal body showed colors that Jake was learning meant deep thinking. The Keelix have never considered true partnership with other species. We study them, sometimes we trade with them, but we do not learn from them. That seems like a waste, Jake said. I bet there are species out there who have figured out stuff you haven't even thought about. Perhaps. But our society is built on the belief that we are the most advanced beings in this region of space. Advanced in some ways, maybe. But not in all ways. Jake gestured around the workshop. You've got amazing technology, but you've forgotten how to think outside the box. You've got perfect mathematical models, but you've forgotten that real things don't always match the models. And you believe this is valuable? I think it's essential, Jake said. The best solutions usually come from combining different ways of thinking. Like, if I only knew about fixing gas engines, I never would have figured out hybrid cars. But when I learned about electric motors, too, I could work on both kinds. Dr. Veleth was quiet for a long time. Finally, it said, The Archon will be here in 2 rotations. Archon This is the most senior leader in our exploration fleet. What will happen when this Archon gets here? That depends on what Archon This decides about you, and about what your abilities mean for our understanding of the universe. Jake nodded. Well, I guess we'll find out. In the meantime, is there anything else I can look at? I'm enjoying this stuff. Dr. Veleth made sounds that Jake had learned was laughter. You are not concerned about meeting the most powerful Helix in this part of space? Should I be? I mean, either this Archon is reasonable, in which case we can probably work something out, or it's not reasonable, in which case worrying won't help. You have a very practical approach to potentially dangerous situations. Jake shrugged. I've learned that most problems aren't as scary as they seem at first. Usually there's a solution if you look for it. Over the next 2 days, Jake worked with more Helix engineers. Each problem they brought him taught him more about their technology, and each solution he provided taught them more about alternative approaches to problem solving. He fixed a communication array by suggesting they clean interference from the signal rather than trying to boost the signal strength. He improved a power distribution system by recommending they add flexibility to handle fluctuations rather than trying to eliminate all fluctuations. He even helped with a climate control problem by pointing out that the system was fighting itself. Instead of working with natural airflows, each success made the Helix engineers more excited and more confused. Their technology was definitely more advanced than anything humans had built, but their approach to maintaining and improving it had become rigid and limited. We have become so focused on perfection that we have forgotten about adaptation. 1. Engineer told Jake, Your solutions are not perfect, but they work better than our perfect solutions. Perfect is the enemy of good enough, Jake said. Sometimes a solution that works well is better than a solution that should work perfectly, but doesn't. On the morning that Archon This was due to arrive, Dr. Veleth came to find Jake in his quarters. The small room had been grown for him by the ship, and it was surprisingly comfortable. Are you ready to meet the Archon? Dr. Veleth asked. As ready as I can be, Jake said. What should I expect? Archon This is ancient, even by our standards. It has led exploration missions for over 10,000 cycles. It does not change its mind easily. What does it think about me being here? I do not know, but I suspect today will determine the future relationship between our species. Jake stood up and smoothed down the robe the Helix had made for him. No pressure, then. Jake, Dr. Veleth said. Whatever happens, I want you to know that you have changed how I think about progress and innovation. Many of us feel the same way. Thanks, Jake said. You've changed how I think about a lot of things, too. I never imagined I'd be having conversations with people made of crystal who live in spaceships. Are you ready? Jake took a deep breath. Let's go meet this Archon. Archon This was the largest Helix Jake had seen. It stood nearly 10 feet tall. and its crystal body was so clear it was almost invisible, except for the slow-moving patterns of deep blue and silver light within it. When it spoke, its voice carried harmonics that made Jake's chest vibrate. "So you are the human who believes he can improve Calyx technology," Archon said. "I'm Jake Morrison," Jake replied. "I've been helping Dr. Veleth and the engineers with some technical problems. They've been teaching me about your technology in return. You do not show proper deference to my authority." Jake thought about that. "I don't mean any disrespect. I just don't know what proper deference looks like for your people. If you tell me, I'll try to do it right." Archon was silent for a moment. "Most beings cower in fear when they meet me. Should I be afraid? Of you? I could order your destruction with a single word. But will you?" Jake asked. "I mean, I get that you could, but Dr. Veleth and the others seem like reasonable people. I figure you're probably reasonable too, or they wouldn't respect you as much as they obviously do." The patterns in Archon Theis's body moved faster. "You make assumptions about my character based on the behavior of my subordinates." "Sure. People usually end up with leaders who are kinda like them, you know? If Dr. Veleth and Commander Zenth and the engineers are basically good people, then the person they follow is probably basically good too." "And if you are wrong?" Jake shrugged. "Then I guess I'm in trouble. But worrying about it won't change anything." Archon turned to Dr. Veleth. "Show me what this human has accomplished." For the next hour, Dr. Veleth and several engineers demonstrated the improvements Jake had suggested. Each working device seemed to surprise Archon more than the last. "These solutions violate our established engineering principles," Archon said. "Do they?" Jake asked. "Or do they just use different engineering principles?" "Explain." Jake gestured to the quantum calibrator. "Your people designed this to work in a perfect environment with perfect components that never change. That's good. Engineering for a perfect world. But in the real world, things change. So I suggested engineering that adapts to changes instead of trying to prevent them. You believe adaptation is superior to precision? I think they're both useful for different situations," Jake said. "Like, when I'm building something new, I want to be as precise as possible. But when I'm fixing something old, I need to adapt to what's actually there, not what was supposed to be there." Archon walked around the workshop, examining each device Jake had worked on. "Our technology has remained unchanged for millennia. We perfected it. Maybe you perfected one approach to it," Jake said. "But there might be other approaches that work even better." "You believe there are engineering principles we have not discovered?" "I believe there are engineering principles nobody has discovered yet," Jake said. "There are probably solutions to problems we haven't even thought of asking." "Give me an example." Jake thought for a moment. "Okay, your ships are beautiful. They're like living works of art. But they're also pretty big, right? What if you needed to build something really small, like the size of an insect, that could still fly through space? Such a device would be impossible. The power requirements alone would be impossible using your current approach," Jake said. "But what if you used a completely different approach? What if instead of one big consciousness controlling the ship, you had millions of tiny consciousnesses working together like a swarm?" Archon was quiet for a long time. "We have never considered such a design. Because you perfected the design you have," Jake said. "But that doesn't mean it's the only design that works. You suggest that our perfection has limited our innovation. I suggest that perfection is really good for solving the problems you know about, but it might not be so good for discovering problems you don't know about yet." Dr. Veleth stepped forward. Archon, there is another matter. The human has suggested that our species might benefit from cooperation. Cooperation? Archon Thys turned its attention to Jake. Explain this concept. Well, your people are really good at some things, and humans are really good at other things, Jake said. If we worked together, we might be able to solve problems that neither of us could solve alone. What could humans possibly offer that we would need? Jake gestured around the workshop. Different ways of thinking about problems, fresh perspectives, the ability to see solutions that your experience might make you overlook. And what would humans gain from such cooperation? Knowledge. Technology. A chance to learn about the universe from people who've been exploring it a lot longer than we have. Archon Thys was quiet for several minutes. The patterns in its crystal body moved in slow, complex cycles that Jake had never seen before. Finally, it spoke. For 10,000 cycles, I have believed that the Kelix were the pinnacle of development in this region of space. You challenge this belief. I don't think there is a pinnacle, Jake said. I think there are just different mountains, and everyone's climbing a different one. Explain. You've climbed really high on the mountain of precise, perfect technology. Humans are climbing the mountain of adaptable, flexible solutions. Maybe there are other species climbing the mountains of artistic beauty, or social harmony, or something we haven't even thought of. And you believe all of these approaches have value? I believe the view is probably pretty amazing from the top of any mountain, Jake said. And I bet you can see things from your mountain that I can't see from mine, and vice versa. Archon Thys turned to the other Kelix in the room. Leave us. I must consider this matter. When they were alone, Archon Thys spoke again. You are not what I expected. What did you expect? A primitive being who would be overwhelmed by our superiority, a creature who would beg for mercy or offer us tribute. Why would I do that? You haven't hurt me, and you don't seem like the kind of people who want tribute. Most species fear us. Maybe they fear what they don't understand about you, Jake said. I've gotten to know Dr. Veleth and some of the engineers. You're different from humans, sure, but you're not scary. You're just people from somewhere else. You do not see us as gods or demons? Nope. I see you as folks who are really good at building amazing spaceships, and who could probably teach me a lot about engineering. Archon Thys made a sound that Jake realized was laughter. Dr. Veleth warned me that you were unusual. Is that good or bad? I have not decided yet. Archon Thys paused. Tell me, what would you do if I released you back to your world? Jake thought about it. I'd probably go back to my job fixing cars. But I'd always remember this. I'd remember that there are people out there among the stars, and that they're not so different from us after all. And if I offered to let you stay here and continue working with our engineers, that would be amazing. But I'd want to go home, eventually. I've got a life on Earth, people who would miss me. You would not choose to remain among superior beings? Superior at some things, maybe, but Dr. Veleth still can't fix a car engine, and I bet you can't either. Archon Thys was quiet again. Then it said, I am going to make a decision that will change the course of Kelix history. Okay. I am going to recommend to the High Command that we make formal contact with your species. Jake's eyes widened. Really? Your people have something we have lost. The ability to think beyond our assumptions. We have something your people lack, knowledge of the broader universe. Together, we might achieve things neither species could accomplish alone. That sounds pretty great. There will be conditions. The contact must be gradual. Your people must be prepared carefully, and you will serve as the primary liaison between our species. Me? But I'm just a mechanic. You are a mechanic who sees solutions where our greatest engineers see only problems. You are a human who treats superior beings as equals. You are exactly what we need. Jake thought about going home, about explaining to everyone where he had been and what he had learned. It's going to be hard to convince people that you're friendly. That is why the process must be gradual. We will start with small demonstrations. Perhaps some of our medical technology to help with your diseases, some improvements to your energy systems. And eventually, your species will join the galactic community, not as subjects or primitives, but as partners. Jake smiled. I think I'd like that. 6 months later, Jake stood in a specially built facility in Nevada, wearing a uniform that had been designed jointly by human and Calyx engineers. Through the windows, he could see the first Calyx ship to officially visit Earth. Dr. Veleth was with him, along with a team of human scientists and diplomats who were still getting used to working with 10-foot-tall crystal beings. Are you ready? Dr. Veleth asked. Jake looked out at the ship, then at the gathering of humans and Calyx, who would be working together to solve problems neither species had even imagined yet. Yeah, he said. I think I'm ready. As the first joint human-Calyx engineering session began, Jake reflected on how much had changed since that night he had gone to sleep naked in his hot apartment. He had awakened to something that left him staggered. Not just the aliens and their technology, but the possibility that the universe was full of people who were all different, all valuable, and all worth getting to know, and that was the most amazing discovery of all.